This is the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci, where we talk about everything but don't sugarcoat anything. Welcome back to the Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci. On today's episode, we have no guest. The guest is me. I'm going to be interviewing myself. This is our first solo pod episode. We're just going to figure out how these do compared to episodes that are with other people. Because I know a lot of people just want to ask me questions and hear what I have to say and what I think. So today's our first solo pod. And we have a lot of prompted questions that just come from my own experience, my own things that I know that people frequently ask me, as well as questions that we know people are curious about being a CEO, a creative agency owner, as well as a talent agency owner. So we have Carolyn sitting over on the other side of the podcast screen. You can't see her, but she is going to be prompting questions to me, and then I'm going to be answering them to the best of my ability. I have not seen any of these questions. I know generally what types of categories they should be about, but some of them will be the first time I'm hearing them as well, and I'm going to answer them to the best of my ability. So let's get started.
What's one creative trend that you're secretly tired of seeing?
The first one I can think of is lowercase letters. Like when people's entire branding is lowercase letters.
I'm laughing because I just presented a logo to her with lowercase letters.
That's what made me think about it. Like, I know that that's a trend, but like in the grand scheme of, and again, I am not an English major, okay? But in the grand scheme of life, like it needs to be capital. And it's just something that I always see being like, is that the end? Is that the start? Is that the beginning? Yeah, so I would say like all lowercase words in marketing messaging. Like the name of the company is like all lowercase. And then their slogan is all lowercase. Like everything's all lowercase. It looks like it's missing something.
Okay, but what about the fact that
Is this a negotiation? Is this a negotiation?
Yes.
Go ahead, Carol.
What about the fact that upper and lowercase letters together are ugly?
I do validate that as well, though. I know that that's probably a hard thing to navigate, that it like pulls your eyes in different areas. But I would say a majority of the majority of the world is probably more posed to look at whether or not something's grammatically correct. But I could be wrong.
What's the weirdest request you've ever gotten from a creative client?
I don't think it's the weirdest request, but it's like a consistency of a request. It's when someone like doesn't have a creative job, so they really get very into our job. And you can tell that like they don't do anything creative in their day life, and like maybe they are missing out on that. So it's funny, I've noticed a couple times with projects that someone's just a little too into the creative aspect when they're not a creative person, and they don't really have any awareness around how creativity works. So there's people that will have this beautiful idea of a logo or a concept, and it's just like there's so much shoved into a tiny little logo that's going to be like on a hat or on a shirt or in a little social media bubble. They cram so much into that, and that's so hard to navigate.
Along those same lines, how do you protect creative integrity while keeping your clients happy? How do you manage that back and forth?
Say that again.
How do you protect your creative integrity or your team's creative integrity while still keeping the client happy, giving them that like happy medium of making them feel involved, but also
knowing that you hired us to do the job? Is that what that's asking? Because when I hear like integrity, I'm also thinking like the value of your work.
I think it's both. I mean, I think when I think of
tell me what that means to you, because I think I'm hearing that a different way than it's wanting me to respond.
When I think of creative integrity, I think of the fact that we are the trusted experts, but you're not trusting us to be experts. You think that you are.
Yeah, I'm hearing that a different way. I'm hearing that almost like protecting our work, like protecting it from like a contract. Like, got it. So I would say sometimes I'm not great at that. That sometimes that's hard to navigate because a client can be like very overbearing. But I also have to like check them, and I'm very comfortable checking people that I'm like, hey, love that you want to be involved in this project. We'll let you know when we need you. Or why don't you go ahead and you work on that on the side, and we're going to do stuff that we're going to do here. And we've had a couple of those clients that are just like overly into the project. And I also want to say that I love when a client is very into their project, but there's like an element of being too into the project that you are going to then delay it. So then I have to almost manage that person as well. That I'm managing the expectations of the client, but also manage that client and say, hey, you hired us to do a job. We're going to do a great job for you. And if we mess up or we do something you don't like, you're going to let me know. But until then, buzz off in a much nicer, professional way.
So when you're in those pressurized environments, what is your go-to strategy for keeping creativity alive within your team?
I got to be honest. I think you have to address the elephant in the room. Like, yeah, they're being nuts. They're being a little crazy. Because if you don't and you're like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, it's whatever, and you don't validate your team's emotions, they could be like, okay, this is like, I can already tell this is going to be a really annoying client. So you have to validate that what's happening is actually happening, but then remind them the why behind it. Like, we're working on this because this person really struggles with making a decision or formulating a really clear brand, or here's the mission behind the brand itself. And I think just trying to remind your team of, yes, this person might be a little bit quirky or weird to work with, because we've also had those that they're just, it's difficult sometimes on both sides for a creative to work with a highly technical and logical person, because then like the communication, the way you communicate is completely different. So just always going back to the why we're working on the project and trying to tap into the emotional side to be able to communicate to a creative is what I would say we always try to do.
So say you do all of those things.
Are these questions on there, or are you just doing more?
No, there are questions on here.
Oh, wow. These are wonderfully going together. Okay, great.
Well, that's me. That's my
love
brain.
That's what she's got.
Say you do all of that stuff, but your team comes to you with an idea. You're all really excited about it. You present it to the client and it completely flops. They hate the idea and they want their money back.
What do I do?
What do we do?
Well, I don't know that that's happened to us. Like, that happened one time, but that wasn't because they hated the idea. That was more...
But they thought they did.
They thought they did. Yeah, they thought... Are we thinking of the same? Mm-hmm. Okay. I was like, are we thinking of the same? All right. I think a lot of that's expectations. Like, ask me the question again. I want to make sure. I don't want to lose my train of thought.
No, I think this is more of like a management question, less of like a creative question.
Yeah.
But just kind of along the same lines of like you and the team come together.
And they hate our idea. What do we do?
You love the idea as a group. You all look it over. You all think it looks good. You pass it off to the client. The client feels the opposite way strongly.
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think we didn't do our job in communicating why it's so great. I think that's the first, because that's my job, right? Like if I just blindly said, here's your new logo, you're allowing so much room for wondering and like whatever. Like there has to be a presentation of some type, an explanation of it. What do you think? What do you not think? And then you also have to like let them know that it's okay to give harsh feedback. Not cruel feedback, but like feedback that I don't really like that. We always like to really make an effort of saying, I'm not emotionally attached to this logo. I'm not emotionally attached to this project. So it's okay. You are, and it's okay if you say to me, I don't really like this or I don't really like that. And it's okay if you don't like it. But that to me is a bigger issue than the fact that someone just doesn't like my creative work. It's that we're that unaligned that we miss the mark so much. Like, did they not communicate as much as they should have? Did we not ask enough questions? That to me as a leader and a manager of a creative agency is how did we miss that mark so much? So I think that's like an answer that I wouldn't really just accept and go, oh, okay, here's your, like, there's a reason how we came to that outcome because we're really good at what we do. They're really good at what they do. So clearly there's just something that misaligned. And so that would just be an opportunity for me to ask more questions. I'm not very quick to just go, okay, yeah, didn't work out. I'll give you your money back. There's something that happened and I have to figure out where that discrepancy occurred.
On the same-ish page.
Oh, yes.
What's the most memorable piece of feedback that you've ever received? I can think of one.
The memorable piece of feedback. My first is I love when there's no feedback. I love when they're like, nailed it. And it's just done.
No notes.
Yeah. Yes. Like I love when that's such a fun, that's so exciting and such a win for a creative agency when you are so aligned with the client and you have really, really good meetings. And I love it when you just send them the video or you send them the website or you send them the logo and they're like, I love it. I wouldn't change a thing. That is so cool. I love that you can take what's in somebody's brain because typically a creative's not working with another creative. So you're able to communicate in a way that they can understand and you can understand. And then you take what's out of their brain and you make it and turn it into life. I think that's always so fun. A specific though, I don't know that I have a specific. What are you thinking? What are you thinking of? Why don't you mute it, tell me, and then I'll tell the people. Do I not want to tell the people?
Do you have one that somebody came to you and was like,
I don't like it or I do like it?
I feel like more on the negative side because positive feedback is always memorable. Like we always remember the way people made us feel when.
Yes. We had a client that we made a bunch of merchandise for. Is that what you're talking about? It's amazing how we can communicate like that. So, yeah, that was really, and what was the name? I want to answer it in the way the question wants me to answer it. It was, what was my worst, like, piece of feedback that someone gave me?
The most, wait, where is it?
Memorable piece of feedback?
Yeah, the most memorable piece of feedback you've ever gotten on a creative project.
Yeah, I think when someone gives you, am I loud enough if I sit back like that?
Yeah.
Like it's it's when it's an emotionally charged response. And with this specific individual, the owner of the company and myself, there was an issue occurring that was not getting resolved. And I thought that we were okay to continue like working on stuff together, but clearly with their response on what we made for them, we made these mugs for an event that they had, and we worked really, really hard to make these mugs a reality. I mean, like if I'm remembering correctly, this was so many years ago now. I remember that there was like elements that they had under control. It was like last minute. They switched things around. We were like hustling. They had an event that they needed the things for.
Last minute is like a really nice way of putting it.
Oh.
The project was for a party.
Uh-huh.
It was a mug that they wanted to give people at the party. The party was on Thursday. They came to us on Monday. These mugs were only available at a specific store in Bethesda, Maryland. We are in the greater Harrisburg area. We had to order them, drive down there.
Did we have to drive all the way down to Maryland to get them?
Well, I did.
Did you?
It wasn't a we thing. It was a me thing.
You had to drive down because that was the closest store that they were available. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's a great example of times that like somebody will give someone feedback on something and it's like, it's totally fine if you don't like it, even though we put our whole everything into it. But yeah, so like what I've learned about business is funny is that, and we talked about this in the last episode, is that I control 50% and they control 50%. And we will try to jump through hoops for people. Absolutely. We do it all the time. However we can make a client happy, we will try to do it within reason. And that is something that I would say we have learned. And this circumstance was an exact moment that I go, we will never again jump through such crazy hoops to try to make an ungrateful client grateful. Because yes, Carolyn's exactly correct that we had a client that was a little bit difficult and they were, I would say, bullying us in a way. But so Carolyn's poor thing's driving all the way down to Maryland. I'm working on whatever I'm working on for it to make it happen. And she had to utilize her capabilities to make sure that she could get these mugs perfect for this party on the timeline that they needed. And I remember we got a response back that were like, these look horrible. They looked like they were made on a Cricut. And what I would just, go ahead. Do you have something you want to say?
They were.
Because sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Because there was no other option to get those mugs in their hands on the timeline. We couldn't go to a production company. It was me that was the production company.
So looking back, we probably should have told them, can't happen. We got to pick something else. But that's something that I've learned in business is that there was times that I didn't say no when I should have said no. And that was one that we received really harsh feedback that it was like, these look like they were, done on a Cricut, which if I know that person would have given me that feedback no matter what, because they didn't like me. But I would say the learning opportunity for me in that though was we put so much into this project behind the scenes, and that's not information that the client knew. And sometimes I would wonder, for this one, I know the answer, but for other clients, if we had communicated a little bit more and said, hey, this is what we're going to have to do to make this happen, I don't think we would have gotten that feedback. But for this specific instance and who this specific person was, I'm surprised that that's the only feedback that I was given. But yeah, that specific, they could have been handcrafted and hand carved from someone in Italy, and they still would have had something to say. So yeah, I would say that was really interesting feedback, to say the least.
What is another example of a creative, they have the word disaster, I think that's a bit dramatic, creative problem that you have had to solve on a last minute timeline?
This is one I liked solving.
Just one that you had to solve, whether it was enjoyable or not, but the outcome was what it was because we did it on a last minute basis.
There's so many things I feel like that happens with. That's just a PSA. Y'all got to get your creative teams a little bit more of a heads up. I would just say in general, not even external. I get it. You have to communicate with people outside the company, but even internally, you got to loop marketing a little bit earlier. They got to know about things and I'm just going to say it. There's an assumption about creative land and creative world that what we do doesn't take that long, right? Like that a sheet of, to create a binder, to create a folder, to create a one pager, to create a website. I don't know why there's this myth that, it's not going to take that long, right? Like it's not going to be, it should be something that's really quick. You're not the creative. You don't know how long it takes to put that together. So when you tell me last minute, it's really, really hard to do. But there's so many I can think of. I feel like it had to have been something with merchandise because that just always goes wrong. Like something being printed the wrong way or backwards or upside down, like something that's just completely out of your control. Promotional items and merchandise is just a hysterical thing altogether. And I feel like it had to do with something like that. But I can't think of anything right off the top of my head.
If you were starting a creative agency from scratch today, what is the first thing that you would do?
I would besides all of the having to set up paperwork and contracts and things like that, that's expected.
The fun stuff.
The fun thing that I would do is I would figure out I would say this and this is just all businesses, but specifically a creative industry. I would figure out exactly who your target market is, like who your client is and what exactly you're offering them, and just create the entire brand around that. Because you don't have to be that forever and you don't have to do that forever. But you want to be really clear and really consistent on what you do and who you do it for. And I would do that right off the bat. Something that I would offer people as a really good tip when they first start their businesses, though, that I did not do. Come here. That I did not do. Okay. That I did not do super, super well was I think when you first start a business, you really try to save as much money. You try to utilize the people that you know, which is all really, really great. But what I did wrong was I utilized too many friends in the beginning and I tried to save a buck. And I wish that I didn't do that in some ways. And so that really came and bit me in the butt. And I tried to use friends for things. And sometimes there's this unspoken conversation that is happening that's do I pay a friend when they're helping me with something? Are they expecting me to pay them? Should I pay them? Should I not pay them? And because that conversation doesn't happen because you're friends and you never usually talk about money, instead you talk about friend stuff, there's that element of that conversation that probably should be occurring just so expectations are clear that I think sometimes is really difficult amongst friends. So I would advise you to not work with friends in any capacity when it comes from a subcontractor side of things if you aren't friends that are able to have those tough conversations. If you can have those tough conversations and you can discuss money and you can discuss when you have a problem or whatever, go for it. But if you're not and you don't have that close of a relationship with someone and they're say somebody's husband or somebody's boyfriend or somebody's friend of a friend, I wouldn't get involved. And don't feel like you have to give somebody else your business either. That's another thing I would say. Just because your aunt is a lawyer or your uncle is an accountant or your mom does this, don't feel like you have to give them your accounting work or your bookkeeping work or whatever just because they're part of your family. There's pros and cons to that. You might save a buck, but you also might not get the best service. And then you're going to have to confront your aunt, and then that whole thing just goes from there. So really analyze your emotional relationship with friends and family if you do try to get into business with them. Because I had a situation go really, really poorly, a couple, to be honest, because I think some people just like to, I don't know, people just have different ways of communicating, and when those don't align and it has to do with money, it gets really difficult and really hairy.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to switch gears to talent.
Oh.
But before we do that, can you give the listeners a quick rundown of what the talent side of our company is?
Yeah.
Because I think people really know the creative because they've known that for the longest time.
Yeah.
But I think it would be nice to just give like a
little history on her. Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. So Carolyn's exactly correct. The creative side of our business has been around since the beginning. Yeah. It's been around since the beginning. People are very familiar with us doing that. The talent side is newer. And I want everyone to be very clear, and I'll talk about that today, that those are two separate services at our company. We have creative and talent services. So the creative side of the business is the marketing, the social media, the creative marketing side, right? These digital pieces, the storytelling. We do a ton of really great video work. All of that really creative marketing is what is all held by the creative side of the business. Now, on the talent side, it's different. The history of that is I had a client we've been working with her for 3.5 or so years now. It's been quite a long time. She was my first talent client ever. We've had multiple talent clients since then. We're actually bringing on new talent clients now, and she's an artist. And so she reached out to us, and like you would necessarily recognize that it's very well known with like the sports world that you'd have an agent per se, or if you are, say, a country music artist and you have a manager, that's exactly what we do for talented individuals. And I want to be clear, I'm not an agent, but I am a manager. And what I do is I help people build their businesses. What I've learned very, very quickly with working with this talented individual, as well as a variety of others, that whether it's a athlete or a musician or a motivational speaker or a CEO that wants to start a new consulting business, it could be an A-list celebrity. We've worked with those, country music artists, whatever it is. They really are very, very talented, and they're very good at whatever that art and that talent is. But where a lot of them lack is that business side. How do I set my pricing? How do I book my engagements? How do I handle contracts? How do I manage cash flow? All of these things that these talents, I've noticed a consistency amongst them. There's a major need for people to do management for them. And so we've worked with a variety. We've worked with artists, we've worked with musicians, we've worked with motivational speakers, we've worked with CEOs. We're about to start working with hopefully some athletes. And what I do for them is I become a trusted advisor, consultant, business advocate for them, helping them boost their business, turn their dream into reality, and make sure that they can take whatever it is that they love doing every single day and turn it into a business, and that they can do this every single day of every single week of every single year, and they can make really, really great money at it. And I'm kind of the magician behind the scenes making it all happen. So I love that side of the business. It came out of nowhere. It has been incredibly rewarding. I love the people's lives that I can change through it. I love that I can take someone's biggest dream that they've had ever since they were a little kid, or something even that they came to later in life, and I can turn it into a career for them. I love that I can help them with that, and I love that I can be behind the scenes knowing that I'm involved in making that happen and cheering them on. So that's the talent side of the business in a very large nutshell, but it is working with talented individuals and helping them build their businesses and make their dreams come true.
What would you say is the most rewarding part of managing talent clients?
I think what's so fun about managing a talent client and what's super rewarding about it is that they will come to me with these dreams, and they will say, I want to work with this client, or I want to be in a movie, or I want to be in a whatever. And there was a time that I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make that happen? But now there's a time that they can come to those things with me, and I go, I know how I'm gonna make that happen. And it might seem like something that's so unattainable to them, because it might be like we had a client, for example, they mentioned they wanted to be on Dancing with the Stars, and we had a shorter contract with this individual. They just had, I think from a personality standpoint, that's where talent and a talent manager really have to align. Is your personalities have to really add up, how your growth, your direction of your business, they really have to align. With this specific one, it did not. But something she wanted to do was she wanted to be on Dancing with the Stars. And she was a motivational speaker. So it's like, how are we going to, you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to make that happen? And what I think is the most rewarding part is I make that happen. This contract with this individual was really short, so we didn't have enough time to be able to, but I knew exactly how I would get her there. And it's all relationships and calls and making connections and really promoting and advocating this individual and putting a really great personal brand together for them, which is where the creative side comes in, is we're able to really showcase their personality through their brand and then be able to promote them and get their name out there.
What is the biggest challenge of managing talent clients?
Emotions. The emotion side of managing talents is really, really challenging because I have to know a lot that's going on in their life. I mean, I really have to know everything in a standpoint. Because when you're dealing with people who are in the news or have movies or get press and PR, I have to know what's going on. And this is as much as they want to share with me, right? And hopefully we build a relationship that helps us get to this place, but I have to know what's going on in their personal lives and I have to know what's going on in their life. And, a lot of talented individuals, whether it's people that are, I don't know how to explain, but people that deal in entertainment, the entertainment industry is really, really challenging. It's really difficult. And a lot of these people have pasts and histories, and there's things that I have to negotiate with them. So they're going to have triggers and they're going to have just different challenges that I would say other people that are not artists or creatives don't maybe come in contact with. So kind of navigating that with them, providing them that support, trying to balance that act of I'm an advisor and I'm someone here, but I, can't solve all of your problems, right? I can advise you, I can push you, I can try to get you to do things. But at the end of the day, that individual has to want it as much as you want it to get them where they want to go. But I'd say managing their emotions through the ups and downs of getting this dream job and then they think it's a dream job. That's another thing too, is they will have a job that they want, that they believe is a dream job, and then they actually get the job and the shine wears off. And then they recognize, okay, this isn't really as great as I thought it was. These people are asking me to do things that I didn't really want to. And then trying to kind of working through that together with them. But overall, absolutely the emotional side of the business is super, super challenging. Yeah.
You had mentioned
Yes.
that you had to end a contract with a client.
Mm-hmm.
When do you know that it is time to end a contract versus working through the challenges of managing a talent client?
Yeah. So great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I'd say that's something I'm still, constantly working through because everybody's different. Everybody has their own personality and their own struggles and visions and goals and whatever. But I would say it's very similar to any other type of relationship, whether it's, a job that you work at when you and your boss are struggling. I think there's an element of we can be misaligned, but there's a difference between being misaligned temporarily because we miscommunicated or something happened. And then there's a difference between people who are committed to misunderstanding you and misunderstanding exactly what you do. And I think there's a couple personality characteristics specifically that I know to look for now that I know we won't do good business together. So I just make sure to look out for those, and there's a lot of, prerequisite steps that we're taking now to try to make sure these types of individuals don't kind of sneak through the cracks. Because charisma is definitely something that's huge in the entertainment world. You have to have an attractive personality of some standpoint. And I think there's a lot of people who hide behind charisma. And there's a lot of, I think just dishonest people in business in general. So trying to navigate that and pick those people out early, I think I answered the question, but yeah, that part's really challenging. What?
Gotta have the Riz.
Correct. You do have to have the Riz. Yeah.
What is the funniest behind the scenes moment that you've ever experienced with a talent client?
Funniest behind the scenes moment. I think they're all funny. I think what's the funniest part of working with talented individuals is that they're all just like adult. They're like big kids. And I haven't seen that in any other type of business that I've been involved with, but they're all really just big kids. And so they're hysterical. Like they say funny things, they do funny things, how they go about funny things. They all have such big personalities. So they're all funny. Like there's so many circumstances. And I like feel like I can't give, and maybe I should, but I don't feel like I'm at a place that I can give specific examples because I don't want to like tell on someone. But they're all funny. They're hysterical and they have big personalities and big dreams and they're just big kids. So hanging out with them is so funny. Obviously having them being big kids also comes with its own level of challenges, but yeah, I like that part.
What is the best way, or how have you learned how to manage when a talent client is having an off day? And that ends up affecting either their work or a meeting that you guys have. I guess this is also similar to like an employee.
Yeah.
But
they're having an off day and how I manage that. It's so complex. It's so individual. So that's why it's hard to answer a one size fits all. It's hard to answer it in a one size fits all way. I mean, being their manager, I'd hope that I know why they're reacting that way and how they're reacting that way. I have a really good ability to like connect with people on a very deep emotional level. So typically I know what somebody's dealing with and what they're going through. And then I can usually navigate what they need. But the biggest thing I can think of is if somebody cannot show up for something in a way that I know that they need to, the stakes are higher for talented individuals. So like if they mess up on a call or they mess up on a meeting and they're not having an on moment, sometimes we don't have a choice and I got to give them a pep talk like nobody's business. And that's happened before. You know, I've had to really remind them who they are. And that's, I think, is the biggest piece is I need to remind them who they are, remind them where they came from, remind them why we're doing what we're doing and kind of really dig deep because they're very emotional creatures typically. And so just really like reminding them of their identity, who they are, why they do what they do, how they do what they do, and how far they've come typically shakes them back into a moment enough that they can go up on a stage and speak or they can give an appearance or they can do whatever. But you also can't force it. If it's like bad, that's where I will handle a majority of the communication or the screen time or, you know, if somebody has to be mic'd up for something, I can handle that. But I either move it if I can or I give them a pep talk like nobody's business to kind of give them a little jazz so they feel good about themselves to go on and handle whatever they have to do. I have something with talents. I think we should answer a question for talents like we answered for creative. Like if I was a talent person just starting out. Because that question gets asked of me a lot. And at the end.
Do you want me to ask you that?
No, I think I'll just say it.
Great.
Yeah. Like, oh, hi, doggo. You're so cute. I love you. So if you're a talented individual, and what I mean, and everybody, I guess, in every sense, and that's actually not true. Not everybody is a talented individual. I was trying to be really nice there. But you know the difference. Like somebody who just is a beautiful artist or they have a wonderful singing voice or, right? Or you might have a child that is uber talented in some way. Maybe it's an athlete or something. And you're like, oh my gosh, they could turn this into a career. The first thing that I really want you to do is be mindful of whether or not that's the direction that you do want to go and what that truly means. And I know that people usually think of entertainment like they would like being a professional athlete, right? There's so much money involved in it and there's so much you can do with it. And yes, in some cases that is true. But in other cases, I would really just have someone dig deep. And it's okay if you don't know in the beginning too, but just be aware of when you feel like maybe you're losing self or you're not losing yourself. But what I would do in the beginning is I would really, again, kind of like the creative, is figure out exactly what I want to be known for and what I want my experience to be. if someone comes in contact with me, what do I want my experience to be? So say you are a motivational speaker, right? The fact that you are a motivational speaker is not your personal brand. That is not something that is unique to you. That is not something that's going to get you the work. The difference between someone who is a talented individual who becomes a really big motivational speaker is them. And they have to show their personality. They have to be genuine. They have to sound authentic. They have to be a thought leader and an expert in an area, and they have to be entertaining. People have to enjoy wanting to watch you or, learn from you. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a highly, charismatic or extroverted person, right? There's lots of people on the internet that are very monotone and whatever, but they bring people a lot of value. So just really figure out for yourself what exactly that is and what you want to be known for and how you want people to experience you. And then be very, very consistent. Put the same type of content out, put the same type of information out, sign up for the same types of speaking gigs, and really be very clear and consistent of what you want to be known for and how you want to be known for it. So I would do that to start. And know that you don't have to stay like that forever either. I'm currently dealing with this with my own speaking. I'm getting booked for a lot of marketing things because that's where I originally started, right? So marketing and branding in the construction, architectural, and engineering. I can get booked for that all day. Other things that I get booked for is talking about hiring and talking about career coaching and where to find people and how to hold on to them and how to retain, the employees. And those things are what I'm most known for. Is that what I want to speak about forever? No, but that's my way in. That's my intro in, knowing that I want to speak about bigger and better topics. So you can always change, but you want to just make sure you're consistent and you have a clear message to start. Thank you. Thanks, Carol. Let's do some light, fun, airy. They're not light, fun, and airy? Go ahead.
What do you do all day? As a
Sleep at
CEO?
my desk. No. It's funny how that transitions from when you first start your business to like fully relaxing or settling. Well, not say relaxing because it's not relaxed in the least, but settling into the CEO founder role. My days are different every single day. I have never had a week since I've started my business that's the exact same as the week before or the week after. Nothing is the same. So that I really enjoy. That's really good for my brain. It really keeps me interested and in tune. But what my weeks usually look like is Monday is always an office day. You have to pull me kicking and screaming out of my office on a Monday because that is just the day that I have set up for myself, that I am organized. I stay in my comfy clothes. I am at my house and I'm making sure that everything for the week is lined up. All our meetings are set up. Everything is just structured. The process looks good. Everything is ready to go. I have my team meetings on Mondays, and then throughout the rest of the week, usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are typically pretty jam-packed, and Friday I like to leave a little bit more open. And I've really done well with that schedule. I would recommend that type of schedule to a CEO starting out. I think it brings really good structure. Mondays, your administrative and catching up all meetings days. Make sure your team's set. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, jam pack it with meetings and things like that. Friday, leave it a little bit open to either be back in your office or you can use it to catch up, whatever you need to do. But on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I am constantly on the phone with clients. They would mostly be new clients because I have people on my team that manage, our current clients, but some of it might be current clients. I'm also on the phone with any of our expert, advisors. This could be my CEO coach. This could be our attorneys, our accountants, my CFO, just checking in on things, making sure things are aligned. I am having meetings for a lot of my talent clients. So I am setting up appearances. I'm negotiating contracts, working on collaborations, writing contracts, advising my team on how to make sure that those are done correctly. A lot of meetings with my internal teams. There's a lot of leading. I do a lot of leading throughout my week, prepping to lead, then physically lead. There's so much that I do. But I would say when you move to the CEO role, you are leading constantly. And that's your team, your clients, the company, in my case, a lot of my talent people. So I am leading, and then also doing a lot of the back end work at the same time.
Is there a service that we offer that you never thought that we would when starting KRAE?
So I think the ghostwriting is super, super interesting and funny how that has come full circle. So what ghostwriting is to us is we will write for what it's been thus far, high profile CEO, business owner, somebody who wants to be on social media but doesn't have the time to be on social media, doesn't really, maybe they're intimidated by social media, they don't know what they should write, but they recognize that they need a value there and they need to have a presence on social media. And the people that they would trust that with is very few people, right? I even myself would be very reluctant to trust, an entry, marketing person with my personal brand and my words. You have to be reluctant of typos, including information that is confidential. There's a lot of things you have to be thinking about. And I love that it's come full circle for us that I personally, that's where I got my start, was writing a lot on LinkedIn. And I understand because I typically have 10 times the amount of followers that a lot of our clients that we work with on LinkedIn specifically. So I know the importance of certain types of things with working with clients of that caliber. And I know that we have to be accurate and we have to sound genuine and we have to sound authentic. It has to sound unique to them. And I love that I get to write and our team gets to write for other CEOs. And I think who better to do that than a CEO for a CEO. I maybe don't know your exact products quite yet or your exact service, but I know how to represent as a CEO. I know how CEOs want to be represented. I know what our weeks are like. I know what our days are like. And so what we really enjoy doing is writing for those individuals and making sure that they have a presence. And truthfully, what I think is so fun is we started originally working with companies, but now that we're working with individuals, we're seeing a direct correlation to higher engagement, higher conversions, and better ROI for that company and the owner.
We're going to do a bit of a tough one. Okay. If our company had a mascot, what would it be and why?
A dog. Yeah. A dog of some type. But here's what I would say. It would look like none of the dogs that we have. I would want like scary dog privilege. Like I would want a cane corso or like something that's really big. But like, it's like a little sweetie once
So
you get to
not
know
Stevie.
it. Not Stevie, sorry. Yeah. Not Remy, not Stevie, not Oakley. They're all very kind and sweet looking dogs. I would want to have a dog that's like, I don't know if I should pet that, which like directly aligns with us as a company. So I just think it would be a dog that is a very strong dog, has scary dog privileges. But once you get to know the dog and you build trust with the dog, that dog's like ride or die. I'm going to protect you. I will walk wherever you walk. You go to the bathroom, I'm coming. I'm just kidding. But it's that type of dog. So I would definitely pick a scary dog privilege dog as our mascot.
I love that.
Thank you.
And also I knew you were going to say that. I could have answered that.
Great.
Let's finish
That
it
would
off.
actually be a funny thing to do because you guys know me so well.
Oh, yeah.
To have you and Gina.
Like the newlywed game.
Yes.
For you.
And like you ask a question to me, I write my answer, you guys write your answers, and we flip around and just see who gets them right.
We should do that as a podcast episode.
That would be so funny because you guys would get me every single time. Both of you always know exactly what I'm going to say, and which is really creepy sometimes, but also wonderful because I know that I'm well represented when I'm not in the room or somewhere, and I really appreciate that. So, but I think we're all that way of each other. Like we're all very unique to each other, but we are very true to who we are, and we're very consistent. So we know what we're gonna get. We know what we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's finish it off today.
Okay.
What is a quote or a mantra that you live by as a founder and CEO?
Here's the thing about me.
Oh no.
It's a quote by Reba. And it's so funny because I use this as my senior year quote. You know how you have a senior quote that you put like in your...
Sure do. Mine was...
What is it?
Don't sweat the petty things and don't pet the sweaty things.
Great. That's wonderful. But I think like quotes can be super, super powerful. And I think sometimes though, I get so serious about things. So sometimes I feel like I need a little bit more, I don't know, just play sometimes, and adventure and wittiness. And so I've always loved this one, and I believe that it is so true and in line with who I am. And that's crazy because I think if I've changed and I've grown up, but I'm very similar to exactly who I've been. I've been very consistent my whole life, and I've definitely matured, whatever. But so this is a quote by Reba McEntire, and it's, "To succeed in life, you need three things: a wishbone, a backbone, and a funny bone." And I just think that that is so true in so many ways because I am a risky bitch. Like, I will bet on myself every day, every single time. I know I will figure it out. There are very few things that stump me. And if they do, I know exactly who I'm going to reach out to. But like, I'm a master problem solver. So that wishbone piece is uber important to me because I think you just have to be someone who's like, I want to go for the crazy stuff. Like, live a full life. Make the wish and jump and just try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to work. It's not going to fail. It's not going to, whatever. We are not that serious. And then I love the backbone piece for sure. Because especially being a female in business, you have to have a backbone. You cannot let people walk all over you, but you also don't want to go so far the other way that you seem rigid or, really difficult to work with. But you have to have a backbone. You have to be strong in your convictions. You have to know what you believe and know what you don't. You have to know what type of people you want to be around. You have to know the types that you don't. And I'm human. Sometimes I figure that out after time. And then the last one's a funny bone because it's all just not that serious. Like, it is all just not that serious.
It ain't that deep.
It isn't. And I take, confidentiality is a huge part of my business. And so is being very discreet and having a lot of discretion. And all of that is super important. We have access to a lot of people's really private information. And I take that very seriously. But at the end of the day, business is supposed to be fun and life is supposed to be fun. And if you are not having fun, what's the point? What's the point?
It's a beautiful place to end.
It's a beautiful place to end. So thank you all for tuning into this episode. I'm going to make a request that if this made any of you guys think of future questions or things that you want to ask me, feel free to submit them, email us directly, go to the website, or you can follow me on Instagram and DM me that way. But I'd love to know questions that you guys have had for me. I would love as difficult as you want to go, as deep as you want to go, or they can be surface level and funny. I'm fine with either. I'm comfortable with each. And so I just really appreciate it. So thanks for listening in today. And thanks, Carol, for being here. What do you have?
I was going to say, or leave them as a comment on our YouTube channel.
Or leave them as a comment on our YouTube channel. I'm telling you, Gen Z is just on top of everything. But yeah, thanks guys for tuning in. We're going to be doing more of these different styles, not questions. I think the next solo pod we're going to do is something along the lines of just my history and story of the company, as well as a couple things that we've got on lock over the next couple months. So tune in. Dun, 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 dun.